Welcome everybody to today's webinar, Adult Education Bridges, Transitioning Adults, presented by Maytech Networks. With us today is myself. You'll see me in the lower right there, Mike Losecki. Hi everyone. And I'm pleased now to introduce our presenter to you, Jennifer Foster. As you can see, she's the Senior Director for Adult Education and Family Literacy and the State Director for GED Testing. She's headquartered at the Illinois Community College Board System, but in talking to her, she travels all around the state. She's always on the road, it seems. She's connecting with something like 100 different state and federally funded different organizations, all in this area of adult education. You'll see from the presentation that Jennifer specializes in strategic thinking about how we make these sort of things happen. So again, it's my pleasure to introduce Jennifer. Jennifer, please say hello to us on the line, and would you mind telling us a little bit about how you got started in this field of adult education?
Hello, and thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of such an important webinar as we talk about transitions. I got started in adult education about 23 or so years ago as an instructor in adult education program within a community college. And I worked in an inner city program, and some of you as adult educators can really identify with being in a classroom of individuals that had reading levels that ranged from no reading at all to about a 12.9 reading level. And so we utilized volunteers as a part of that process. And so there really went my approach and movement into adult education. As many adult educators, I came into adult education not via the traditional pipeline. I was not set up to be in the education realm, but drew to become really drawn to the whole concept of teaching adults and providing them with another opportunity to increase their skills. And then later as a program coordinator within that community college system, and still keeping those connections to the classroom and to the students. And then later on in about 2000, the year 2000, came to the community college board as a director within the adult education program, with the transfer of adult education from our State Board of Education to our community college board system.
Well, thanks, Jennifer. We really appreciate that background. I think you're speaking to an interested audience here, and you're right. These are important issues, and it's our pleasure to have you here today. Why don't you go ahead and take us forward?
Okay. Well, I would just like to give you just a little bit of an overview of our community college system. Like I said earlier, adult education is housed in the community college system. We have 39 districts within the community college, and we're the coordinating body for those community colleges within Illinois. We also are the governing body of both adult education and GED testing. Within adult education, there are approximately 90 programs or program districts that we fund throughout the state to deliver adult basic education, English as a second language, which is inclusive of bridge programs as well as integrated models in terms of what we're going to be talking about today. So within this housing body, we really partner with a lot of organizations, career and technical education, our developmental education, student support services, and others. So as we embark upon this journey of looking at transitions today, I just wanted to start by giving you just a little bit of an overview of some of the things that we've been working with in Illinois and identifying some of the skills gaps, because I really feel that this is very important as you're embarking upon looking at transitions within your own states or within your own localities. When we started out this process, we were looking at all of the different endeavors that were going on throughout our state and within Illinois, and trying to look at some commonalities and some approaches within Illinois that we could really hang our hat there for adult education. And so some of the commonalities that we could agree with is that we do have a middle skill gap in terms of some of the job opportunities that are out there. We have individuals that need additional skills within our state. So we needed to really take a look at how adult education could really connect to the overall system of trying to prepare all adults to be ready to fill some of the gaps that we were experiencing. So as we started to take a look at data, and this is not foreign to anyone that's on the call, we try to use data for program improvement. Wherever you go, you will have to use data in order to inform a lot of the decision making that you do within adult education as it relates to the transitions. One of the things that we looked at was that 22% of our adult education population with the goal of transitioning actually made movement, and that equated out to approximately 1,300 individuals making that movement into post-secondary education, those that had that goal. We also, in taking a look at that, we determined that that's not a large number of our students, and are we just teaching to those individuals getting the GED, or are we teaching and providing instruction for those that would like to or are interested in movement beyond that point? So those are some startling statistics when we really sort of sat down and started to take a look at these things. And then in Illinois, 8 million adults in Illinois over the age of 18, only 44% have completed any college coursework at the community college system, and that's how we do our data match. We data match with our internal community college system data. So those are some startling figures there, and in order to meet the need of the future, we're going to have to, now more than ever, adult education has to really increase its skills and its determination of moving more adult learners to post-secondary education. So as we started to take a look at our future trends in Illinois, we knew that we had a high percentage of workers that did not have the basic skills in order to move into some of the middle skill jobs that have been identified of the future. We knew that we had an increased number of individuals that are immigrants within our system. Approximately 600,000 of our students are immigrants within Illinois, and there would only project to be in the future an increased number of these low-skilled immigrants. And then as a state, as a whole, we were identifying and looking at some critical skill areas, and this started prior to adult education's involvement in this whole transition initiative. We started to take a look at these 3 areas that are listed on your screen. We started to take a look at the healthcare profession, and there would be an increased need for more healthcare workers. And sometimes we think of healthcare in the area of nursing, but there are other healthcare areas that we need to really focus on, and also where our adult learners can really increase their skills and also go into some of these areas that were listed there. For example, a phlebotomy tech. Or something, maybe some areas that our students could go into. Also, I was just in a meeting earlier this morning where a mammography tech is another area in a field that maybe some of our individuals can go into. And X-ray tech is another area. We also started to take a look at manufacturing, not manufacturing in the traditional sense, but manufacturing that may lead to other high-skill, high-wage jobs. Transportation, distribution, and logistics is also another area. And since then, we have opened up this area into some of the information technology areas, and we are really focused in on all of the pathways because as a state we've selected these 3 as a possibility, or these 4 as a possibility, but we also are taking a look at the other 16 career clusters. So what may be of a great importance at the state level, there may be other areas within those 16 career clusters that have been identified there may be other local areas and local needs within the area. So as we move forward in Illinois, we continue to look at those future trends, and we continue to look at the middle skill job growth. We continue to look at, the armed forces. We look at carpentry. We look at the shortage of nurses that we will have by the year 2020. We look at other areas within those medical fields. We also look at, and I'm sure that a lot of you that are on the phone are someday, as I am, looking forward to retirement, but we're facing an accelerated retirement of some of our middle skill workers, and there is also a decline in some of those resources that are there, some of the training efforts that are going on in order to help to provide individuals with the training opportunities that they need in order to move into some of the middle skill job growth. So there is a huge concern that we will not have enough jobs, not enough workers in order to fill some of the middle skill job growth. So as we sort of set the platform for our discussion today, I just wanted to kind of really re-emphasize that as we take a look at these different areas, we look at our academic instruction, and we look at bridges, and we look at the integrated program outcomes, and we look at also adult education as a part of this process. There are a few sort of ground rules that we have to really look at, and we have to take each of these areas individually because they're very important as we develop a bridge program or some sort of an integrated approach to the delivery of instruction to adult learners. We look at the academic instruction, that the way we're content driven in academia, and we're also semester and schedules, and there's a lot of professional accountability there. But when we look at and I'm going to skip over this middle section here for a second, we look over at adult education. It's more skill driven. There is open entry, open exit, although we're moving into more of a managed approach within adult education. And we have an accountability system within adult education, which is an NRS, our National Reporting System. This middle area here, when we talk about bridge and integrated programs, you're talking about contextualizing skills, building and bridging basic skills and also career and technical education skills together in a platform for bridge programs to teach those components. In the integrated programs, you're looking at that team teaching approach and that team model. You're looking at more of a managed classroom structure that you're really holding individuals accountable for a lot of the different subject areas or that they're embarking upon. But there's a lot of accountability. So you're not just looking at what's placed in academic area or your career and technical education area and not only your NRS area, but you're looking at a combined approach in terms of a lot of accountability. And so as we move forward in this discussion, it's very important to recognize that we have to look at all of these different structures in order to build a bridge program or an integrated model. So how did we get started in adult education? And you heard sort of my background and how I got into adult education sort of sideways. Understanding that within Illinois, we were not a part of a lot of the different approaches that were going on prior to what we call our Shifting Gears initiative. There were a lot of discussions that were going on throughout the state. And so when we came into adult education, we really came in looking at it from the Shifting Gears initiative perspective. And the Shifting Gears initiative is a Joyce Foundation project that we looked at a lot of different areas relative to policy and also building bridge program in the development. We also developed our own bridge programs as a part of this initiative. We also have developed a strategic plan for adult education. And as we look at that strategic plan today, we're going to really highlight a lot of different areas there. And we're going to talk a little bit of how our Adult Education Advisory Council sort of helped us to move forward in this initiative in talking about transitions. And also our newest project, which is Accelerating Opportunity, and how we work through the Jobs for the Future in order to continue our movement in transitions and moving adult learners into post-secondary education and making sure that they have some credit associated with that. And the last area that we have listed here is the alignment of our Illinois adult education standards with a lot of the other standards. We've all heard of the Common Core and College Readiness Standards. So we have worked to align our standards with the Common Core and College Readiness Standards. So as we move forward, and we decided that we really needed to develop a vision for adult education in our state, because prior to this we did have a vision and goal document, and in that vision and goal document were several procedural type things in terms of, okay, well, we have to address adult learners' access to adult education services. We have to address their literacy needs. But what we decided to do is set a course where we were moving into more of the transition phase. And I can tell you that this was really a leap of faith for us, because we were very unique to this. There were only a few other states that had tried this before. So we were very unique in this perspective. We had to set the course that adult education in Illinois was very effective in what it did, but it was time now to move into other areas, particularly the transitions. We had to establish that adult learners are learning, that adult education learners are attending their classes, they're achieving their goals, and they are making some transitions. But one of the things that we wanted to do is that we have changing times within adult education. Our strategic plan went to December of 2008, and so what we wanted to do is try to embark upon these changing times and move forward. How do we make sure that we're setting a course for not only our state but our adult learners and helping them to make those transitions into post-secondary? So for many, many years, we have been basic skill focused, literacy focused, ESL, and employment. There were a few advocacy groups that were out there that were advocating for this vision, and one is called Women Employed within our state, and we work very closely with them. But this was a different venture for Illinois adult education. We were now partnering not only with those advocacy groups, but with also our Title I partners as a part of the process. So in developing a vision for adult education, each individual agency within our state came up with a different way of defining what a career pathway was, and it was because of our participation as a part of the Illinois Shifting Gears initiative that ABA began to shape the vision for the direction that we wanted to go. So as we move forward, we were developing lots of partnerships with different state agencies and different agencies not only outside but internally. And we wanted to make sure that adult education was not operating in a silo, that we really wanted to partner with our folks at the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, as well as our Student Development Services offices with internally, and our workforce systems, and our research and data and accountability, and also other advocacy groups. So as we move through Illinois Shifting Gears initiative, we decided early on there were some development of some pilot projects relative to bridge programs. And so what we decided as a group is that we would take a step back and we would really focus in, which was one of the purpose of the Joyce Foundation initiative, is to focus in on those policies that may deter some of those bridge programs actually getting up and running and implemented throughout the state. So we decided to take a look at some of these policies, the statewide bridge definition. There's some adult education funding clarifications that really focused in on making how can we use adult education resources in order to develop the bridge programs and implement bridge programs. We looked at a bridge program course approval process. We looked at support services within our state. We looked at our training policies within our WIA Title I. And we also focused in on data measurement and evaluation, because whenever you do a project of this nature, it's always very good to make sure that you have the evaluation mechanism built in, because you want to be able to understand the future direction in terms of where you're going, and also make sure that you have a clear understanding as to what's going on as a part of the process. So as we began the process, and I alluded to on the previous slide that we talked about this bridge definition, we had to have a common starting point for all agencies that were working as a part of this initiative. And remembering we were partnering with several different agencies and advocacy groups, with the approach that we took was to make sure that this bridge definition was used statewide. And so we came up with 3 common elements of a bridge program. And beginning with contextualized instruction, making sure that there is a blend between contextualized instruction and the career and technical education terminology that's used, and blending those two together, giving our participants a little bit more of a knowledge about specific career pathways that they will be embarking upon. And the next element is career development and awareness services, making sure that those things are actually embedded as a part of instruction. The third area is transition and support services, and we affectionately know this in our state as transition specialists. You may know it as a navigator or a career coach, that you may use that terminology within your own states or your own locales. But we decided that these 3 elements were very important as a part of our development of bridge programs. And so this bridge definition is used across our WIA Title I programs, our adult education programs, our career and technical education programs, our community-based organizations, our colleges, our school districts, in development of a really strong bridge definition. And so as we go through our our bridge programs, but as we go through our course of approval of these programs, we make sure that all 3 of these elements are included as a part of the process. So therefore, this sort of pole vaulted us into our plight to introduce career pathways to our adult education system. And prior to this point, there was only about one CBO and a few other CBOs that were actually doing this. And I know that some of you may be aware of Instituto del Progreso. They're one of our leaders in terms of development of bridge programs and really partnering with community college institutions so that individuals can move into a lot of the what we call the program of study areas within the colleges. So we're going to pause here for just a moment, and I know I've covered quite a bit of information here, but we want to do a poll and have a polling question here for you. What has your experience been in working with partners to either develop policies or to develop a strategic plan?
So Jennifer, the participants have an opportunity, as you see some of them are already inputting, they're using that box just below or above the list of participants, just below the word participants, and they're selecting I think I'm going to select one right now myself. We'll just give people just another moment to give us a sense of whether they've got little or no experience or some extensive experience with partnerships. As you can guess, that's a pretty important thing. Remember, folks, use your the polling button in your chat window. Okay, I've got mine in. Let's give people, Jennifer, another 4 seconds, and then I'll count down. So 4, 3, 2, 1. Make your last guesses. Go ahead, Shannon. Let's see the poll on the screen. So look at that, Jennifer. You've got quite a range here.
Mm-hmm. We really do. There's quite a range of individuals that have more so concentrated in little or no experience or some experience in doing this,
right.
And some that are not sure in terms of their overall response. So it's and that's what we're seeing. And within our nation, I was just at a meeting earlier this week in New Orleans where we were talking about transitions, and about approximately 23 to 25 of our states are really embracing the whole concept of the transitions and developing strategic plans along those lines. And so as we move forward with the next part of the presentation, I'm going to just kind of walk through our whole strategic planning process just to give you some insight into the world as we know it in adult education in Illinois.
Very good. Thank you.
So our next process is talking about our strategic planning process. And I always joke a lot when I do presentations is that within Illinois, we always do things in 30s. And I don't know why. When we did our funding task force, we had a 30-member task force. When we have our Adult Education Advisory Council, we do a 30-member task force. And we have on our design team a 30-member task force. So we're just going to keep with that flavor. And so we're utilizing a 32-member task force in the development of our strategic plan because we want to make sure that it's representative of all of our provider types within our state. And as I said earlier, we fund approximately 90 providers within our state. And during this time frame, I think we had about 92 providers that were funded. And so we try to make sure that there is a representation across the adult education community. Within our state, we fund a third that are community colleges, a third that are community-based organizations, and a third that are CBOs, community-based organizations, school districts, and what we call regional offices of education, which is our local education agencies. So as a part of this process, we wanted to make sure that we get the appropriate buy-in from all of our providers and different organizations, because as you're developing a strategic plan and when you're setting this new direction and setting this new course, it's very important to really recognize that we need to get some buy-in from all of the organizations, because what is happening is that you are making a major shift in what you actually do. You're going from primarily a literacy, get your GED focus, to now movement beyond the GED and beyond the literacy movement. So it's not taking away that we're leaving out literacy, but you're actually pole vaulting into a huge area that needs to make sure we get the buy-in from a lot of different organizations. So as we approached this process, we started to take a look at our guiding principles, and we wanted to establish those guiding principles from the beginning and making sure that as we move forward as a part of the process, that we make sure that we set the bar. We set the guidance for this group and coming up with the vision as we move forward. So when we talk about these 8 guiding principles, and when we talk about responsiveness, we want to make sure that what we're developing within our strategic plan, that it was responsive to the needs of not only the adult learners, but what's going on within our different communities. And our Our strategic plan is on our website at www.iccb.org. And in the strategic plan, we look at these 8 guiding principles, and we really took those really seriously. We used a facilitator in helping us to develop our strategic plan because we wanted to make sure that there was one person that was trying to pull us all together in terms of all of these 8 areas. And the group worked remarkably together. I mean, they had Post-it notes posted around the room trying to come to a consensus. The accountability area here is something that is very important, making sure that we are accountable not only to our funders but also to our national reporting systems, that we are collaborative, that we collaborate with not only within our adult education system, but we branch out and informing other partnerships, that we're looking at alignment with post-secondary, looking at alignment with the Common Core and college readiness standards. We talked a little bit about contextualization, and I guess I was a little happy and I wanted to put more accountability in there, so we added more accountability even more, but making sure that we address some of the issues relative to the importance of reading within the whole process of evidence-based teaching and learning, and also promoting that professional development, that whatever we do within the strategic plan, whatever we align with, is going to require that we have some really extensive professional development. So as we moved through the process and we took a look at what we were doing in adult education, we decided that we could agree upon this common vision, that we envision adult education as the foundation of a career pathway system that prepares adult learners for economic self-sufficiency. And so what we decided here is that in order to achieve this vision, we will partner with adult ed learners, key stakeholders, and provide a clear direction, quality instruction, and targeted support for achieving learner goals. And so we wanted to really focus in on their movement into occupational training programs and also to economic self-sufficiency or sustaining employment. So from the guiding principles, we move into our recommendations. And this process took a while. There was a lot of discussions about our recommendations. We took some out, we put some more in, we had a whole list of recommendations there, but we settled on these 6 recommendations as we moved through the process. So we decided on assessment, curriculum, instruction, and we determined at this point that we really needed to concentrate on what adult learners need to know in order to make that transition into post-secondary education. We also wanted to make sure that we adopt aligned assessment, curricula, and instructional practices that prepare our adults for family-sustaining jobs and also career advancement. Our second recommendation was to support and follow-up services. And as we look at support and follow-up services, developing a comprehensive student support system in order to reduce those personal barriers that we sometimes encounter relative to, our adult learners encounter relative to staying with their programs and movement into post-secondary and coming to class on time. So some of those child care, transportation barriers. And we spoke a little bit earlier about the bridge definition. Those transition and support services, that transition specialist should understand both internal and external means by which they're able to help those students navigate the system. And also looking at high quality teaching and professional development. We need to make sure that our adult educators have the professional development and technical skills in order to be able to move forward in teaching our adult learners. We must look at our professional development systems and making sure that we're moving from a 1-hour session to more of a workshop format in order to look at that transference of learning from the professional development activity into the instruction. So as a part of this process, that's what we're doing in Illinois. We're taking a look at our professional development, and we have a professional development system that is consistent of 3 centers, and beginning last year we decided to specialize those systems in different areas. And we have one center that's really dedicated to the transitions area and transitions between levels, as well as transitions to post-secondary education and into employment. We also, the fourth part is partnerships, and we really concentrate here on partnerships because, as I stated before, adult education cannot accomplish this alone. We have to build those partnerships, and wherever our expertise doesn't lie, then someone else can pick those up. So if we're working with TANF organizations, if we're working with our Title I partners, if we're working with local community-based organizations that may be able to provide some case management services or support services as a part of the process, we need to make sure that we're able to identify and those key partners that will help us to move forward. And again, where would we be without research, data, and accountability? We need to continue to expand and strengthen our accountability system, because as a state, we want to be able to use the data and other research in order to inform our next steps, where we move in this transition process, to determine whether things are working or not working as a part of the process. And then the overall program design. What does adult education look like in your locale? What does adult education look like as a part of your state? Are you really taking a look at program outcomes? Are you really taking a look at orientation process and assessment processes? Are you just letting individuals come in and there's really no commitment? They just know that they really want to come in and get a GED. So what we want to do is make sure that the individuals are ready and design those orientation processes where they're looking at career development, career awareness, of what do you want to do. Not only I want to get my GED, but what do you want to do beyond that? We have to provide that structure for our students to make the decision, the educated decision, about whether they move into post-secondary education or pathway employment. So as we take a look at our strategic plan, it's a lot of pages to our strategic plan. It's approximately 40 pages. But when we use this plan has positioned adult education to be at the table at on a lot of different initiatives. So we use our strategic plan to communicate with our community college presidents. All of our community colleges are funded adult education providers within our state, but we use this to work with them to make sure that we're making those connections to post-secondary education. Our Adult Education Advisory Council is helping us to shape our direction. They concentrate in 3 areas. They look at our assessment and curriculum and instruction, as well as our research data and accountability. So they have priorities within those areas to help us sort of design either assessment or curriculum or research that will help to move the field forward. And so we're very appreciative of having our statewide advisory council, which, by the way, is also 32 members. We also are looking at the direction and of the competitive RFP process. We held a competitive RFP process in the spring, so we used our strategic plan to help there, and also to shape our direction of our instructional offerings, and also our common partnerships that we work with our local foundations. So we have determined that our strategic plan has been great for Illinois adult education, and it has helped us to be a major player in a lot of the different initiatives. At the national level, Adult education is included in a lot of the different grants. The TAACT, and I believe I left out a couple of A's. Also the Workforce Innovation Fund. We're at the table. We're being included, and that's a good thing. So as we move into another area, which is our bridge program development and implementation, we were able to use some of our adult education WIA incentive funds as a part of this process. And we were very fortunate as a state to receive those funds. This helped us, and if we did not have those funds, we would be really behind in the process. But we were able to partner with our Title I partners, our career and technical education program, in order to receive these WIA incentive funds. So we were able to fund multiple grants statewide. I think at this point we have about 26 programs within our state that are using it, and through our RFP process, it is a priority that we have a bridge program in every institution, or that every institution that we fund has partnered in some way to deliver a bridge program. And so as a part, we use that statewide bridge definition, and those bridge development programs focus in on planning, and we separated out development and implementation because we wanted to give programs at least 6 months to a year to fully develop their projects, and then in the next year to move into actual implementation. So these areas that you see here in terms of planning, assessment, curriculum and instruction, recruitment and retention, support services, and partnership and collaboration are all key areas that will need to be a part of this whole planning process, because you have to have these things in order to be able to deliver a bridge program. Recruitment is different than it is recruiting into a traditional system. With the waiting list of what we have in Illinois, we don't really need to recruit into adult education, but when you're talking about bridge programs, it's important that you know that recruitment in these areas is very important, that you get the right population and making sure that they're making clear decisions about the pathway that they've chosen. So as a part of this, training is essential. And as I stated earlier, we have the Service Center network of professional developers, and one has been tasked with development of bridge program training. We started out with the development of core training, which was understanding the career pathway framework, understanding key terminologies and the need for the system, and also providing some face-to-face and online training to all of our providers within the state. So every provider within our Illinois system went through this core training. So then the next step in terms of bridge training, we decided that we would develop a very comprehensive approach to training. And this training was evaluated, and I see from some of the individuals that are on the call today, Kathy Kirby is here from the Office of Community College Research and Leadership, helped us as a part of this process to evaluate our training so that we could go and make the necessary nips and tucks here to make it what it is today. So we decided to concentrate in these areas, understanding the definition, what partnerships, how to develop your curriculum, how to recruit and retain students in the bridge programs, and other resources that are needed in order for individuals to be successful as a part of the bridge process. So now we're going to pause again, and we wanted also to do another polling question around bridge programs and integrated models. Have you received any training related to bridge programs or any of the integrated teaching models, not only in your state, but maybe outside of your state at conferences?
So folks, go ahead and use that polling box again. Choose your A, B, or C. I'm just thinking of myself, Jennifer, while people are answering. I know about bridge programs, but I've not gotten any formal training, so I think I'm going to click C for me, even though I know a little bit about them.
Okay.
Let's give people just another moment here to answer. Remember, folks, use your the box right above all the participant names. It's the fourth box over, and make your decisions. Let's give people, Jennifer, just another minute. I'll count down from 4, and then we'll close the poll. 4, 3, 2, 1. Poll's closed. So look at that. Most people in the C range. Interesting.
Right. And we recognize that, and that's why within our state we really wanted to focus in on the training aspects, because individuals really need to be trained on how to do this, because this approach is so different from what we're actually used to, and so we need to make sure that training is available. And I do know at the Department of Education, the Office of Vocational and Adult Education, they're really working in this area, as well as the National State Directors of Adult Education, which I'm a part of. We're working on these areas and trying to provide training throughout the state, and other states are doing this as well. And I know colleagues in North Carolina, in Kentucky. I saw someone on from Kentucky, but we are moving in that direction where we need a lot more training in order to help our states to move forward in this endeavor.
Good, thank you.
So in summary, we formed, in terms of our strategic plan, we formed this 32-member task force in the spring of 2009 that went through November. So this was a 6-month process. And through that 6-month process, we went back and forth. We held several public hearings throughout the state to inform individuals and to get feedback from participants. We shared this information with our statewide advisory committee, and they approved the plan in October of 2009. Our Illinois Community College Board approved this in November of 2009. And so we began our implementation in fiscal year 11, which was July 1st of 2010. So if you looked at this from our standpoint, we are in actually about the second to third year of implementation of this, and we have really pushed this strategic plan. I carry it a lot. I have it here as I'm sitting at my desk. So we really promote this, and we take it wherever we go. I'm sure some people might get upset about that we always bring it to meetings, but this is really a good plan. And I'm one not to have a plan that sits on the shelf and collects dust. We have to make sure that it's out there and it's in the forefront and it's our guiding document. So as we move into our integrating our career pathways into our existing adult education system, we have participation as a part of our Illinois Shifting Gears initiative. We have developed our strategic plan. We are instituting bridge program development. We're developing the core training, and we're also developing a broader range of training for our programs. Well, and as a part of this process, and I chuckle here, but as a part of this process, it was one of the areas that we knew that we really needed to do more in terms of training. Although initially our individuals had a good understanding, but it was soon apparent that how do we get started? Who do we bring to the table? Do we bring our career and technical education side? Do we bring our workforce side? How do we work within our own systems? How do we bring in our other partners? And so as a part of the process, we developed, working with the Office of Community College Research and Leadership, we've developed some logic modeling for our programs so that they could go through our process of developing a logic model that would be helpful and useful to them. So we also here have another polling question. How many of you have ever used a logic model or some planning tool to map out a project? So we have a couple of choices there.
Okay, friends, just a yes/no choice here. A would be yes, you've used logic modeling, and B, no, I've not used it. Jennifer, I had a chance to use it as we were doing some proposal development, and it was it's very useful. So I'm going to click yes. That's an A for me, or the yes on the polling question. Actually, we have the yes, no, or option. So folks, please click your yes, no's. It'll appear as a check or a cross mark in the thing. Let's give people just 3 more seconds, and then we'll take a look at the poll. 3, 2, 1. Poll closed. So almost an even split between folks that have used it and not had a chance to use it yet. A little bit more favoring those that have actually used it. That's good.
Right. So that's a good thing. So that means you're one step closer to your whole planning process of planning the bridge programs, because you've had that familiarity with the mapping out tools.
Very good.
This particular slide, I know it's really, really small, and I tried to figure out how to make it bigger, but I could not. But this gives you an example of a logic model that was used by one of our community colleges that were developing a bridge model. We do this for both when we were doing these specialized grants. We had development grants, and we also had implementation grants. And so what we wanted to do is give those folks that were in the development mode some opportunity to take a look at developing a logic model. So as you can see here, we look at the resources that were developed. We also look at some goals, core components, outcomes, and impact. So this is really a planning tool, and I'm sure that there are multiple planning tools that are out there. I think that it's important that you plan out what you want to do, and also looking at this target population. This is very important, because within our bridge programming model, we set that target population. It has to be those individuals that are at the 6th grade level equivalency or the intermediate level of ESOL services, and really targeting that population. So you can see here from the Shawnee Community College that they've mapped out their target population of ASA students reading at a 6.0 or above, individuals with or without a high school diploma, and they're focusing in on 4 and 5. So these areas here are very important as a part of the process, and I can see in some of the boxes here that some others have shared some of the logic model tools that they've used as well. So what we determined that we wanted to take a look at our existing professional development centers to research career pathways, and also to do more in terms of developing of the training. And as I said before, we use the Office of Community College Research and Leadership as well as Women Employ in helping us with the development of this training. So the training has been expanded to include more in the area of curriculum and contextualization. It is more in terms of career development and what that means, and how to work with your students in terms of this whole career and awareness area, making sure that they're making some key decisions or have exposure to the information so that they can make some decisions about their next steps. And it's all a part of what can they do next. It's not to teach to the GED, but we want them to go beyond that phase in their thinking. And also looking at instruction and actually how you actually do the instructional pieces here. Partnerships, again, and support more in terms of support services. And in the process of our development, we developed a couple of statewide curricula that for healthcare as well as for manufacturing. And this was through a collaborative effort of taking in all of the curricula that have been developed by institutions and pulling that together. And that's also available on our website at www.iccb.org.
So Jennifer, thank you. We're going to pause for a moment. We do have one more concluding section coming up as we take an opportunity to address some of the questions that the participants have, and I want to remind folks to please put their questions right into the chat window there. Jennifer, let me bring forward a couple of them to you. The first one is, you've talked a lot about this model in Illinois. There must be other states. Are there other states that are mimicking Illinois? In particular, there was a question about New York. Are you familiar with a model such like this going on in New York or perhaps another state?
I do know my colleagues in New York are moving forward with a lot of transition activities. I believe that they're taking they're taking a regional approach to a lot of these and developing a lot of the transition centers. I know colleagues in Minnesota that are doing fast track within Minnesota. Colleagues in Kentucky, they're participating as a part of the accelerating opportunity. So yes, there are many states that are looking, and as I stated earlier, about 23 to 25 states are moving in this direction, and others that are looking to come on board and trying to map out their strategies.
Very good. One other question, as part of these initiatives, do adults in general, are role models a help in these areas? The question was, are role models good for adults? They see someone doing it and they say, I can do that too. Is that a standard feature of these sort of models, or what do you think?
I think that role modeling is very good. It's good for our participants to see someone working in a specific area that they may have interest, or that they may actually go and participate as a part of an internship or something. That we always come up with student stories that can be used, and I know that in Kentucky, they have some wonderful stories that are there about participants coming back and sharing their experience being a part of the different either bridge or integrated approaches. So I think role modeling is very good, and the opportunity for individuals to go and actually participate, whether it's through some sort of a work-based learning process or through some sort of an internship, or just to go out and job shadow. I think it's very important that our individuals have that opportunity.
That's a good point. There's a discussion going on in the chat window about two items. I like this one. It's called, at least I heard it called, intrusive advising or intrusive coaching. And to me that means you don't wait for the adult in this case to come to you. You say, I'm scheduling an interview with you next Tuesday at 9 and we're going to talk about how you're doing. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but is that a feature? One person in the chat commented it's actually a good feature of these sort of models. And another person mentioned project-based learning. Are both of those, do you think, applicable here?
I think they are, and you will definitely have to, in terms of the project-based learning, you will have to partner outside and make sure you're partnering with all of those entities. Not only employers are great resources, but also if you're within a community college system, there are opportunities with the different programs and pathways that are a part of the community college system, is to have individuals go and just look in on, or there are activities that are around certain pathways that can be incorporated into the basic skills instruction as they're learning this process. And I really agree with the intrusive advising. That is very important. And as we talk about transition specialists, that's what they do. That's exactly what they do. They seek the individuals out. They talk about the next phase. And I think that as a part of the logic model development, that is a good key component of trying to help individuals to map out the adult learner to map out what their next steps are as a part of the process.
Very good. Thank you. We're going to have another question at the very end, another question break at the end, and I've got a couple of reserved questions for the end. It looks to me, Jennifer, like your timing is perfect. We got about 20 minutes left for your part of the presentation, so why don't you go ahead and take us forward.
Okay, will do. Our next area that we're going to talk about is our Accelerating Opportunities, which is a new initiative that we're just in, and we're probably about a year and a half or almost 2 years into it. It started with a a design phase, and now we're into about a year into the implementation. So we're really excited about this project because what it does is takes adult education to the next level. We talk about bridge programs, which is a blending of basic skills and occupational specific terminology together to give to actually help individuals to make those decisions about the career pathway that they're in while they're learning their basic skills. This takes us in the next direction, and we're really excited about this particular integrated model that has been developed by the Gates Foundation initially in the design phase, but has really brought on a lot of additional foundations in terms of their support. Jobs for the Future is the managing agency, and they're the ones that are really helping us to pull this whole initiative together in terms of the integrated model. They have the Breaking Through initiative as one of their areas, and a lot of lessons learned from these particular models. We're really looking at the iBest model that's been developed by another one of the partners in Washington State, and trying to see whether this particular model will work in other states. We also are working with the National Council for Workforce Education and also the National College Transitions Network. And we talked about the Joyce Foundation, which is within Illinois. So we're really excited about being a part of this process. We were selected as one of 11 states as a part of the design process, and we are one of 4 states, and it has grown since then. Just finding out a few weeks ago that there are other states that are participating as a part of the process, Louisiana as well as Georgia. So Kentucky, North Carolina, Kansas, and Illinois were the 4 states initially to receive this implementation grant over the next 3 years. So we're really excited about being a part of the project and taking adult education to that next level. So the priority is to realign adult education to ensure that students have access to career and technical education. And so once again, we started with this 30-member design team, and I wanted to make sure that I included this piece here as a part, because it's very important that you note all of the members that we have that are sitting around the table helping us to develop this next level of instruction for our adult learners. So we have board members that are representative. We have our governor's office. We have our adult education administrators and faculty. We have our Title I partners, our community college presidents, faculty, adjunct faculty, advocacy groups, and the whole host, because it's very important that we have everyone at the table, because we cannot do this alone. And so we're going to need the partnerships. And we instill that in our colleges that are actually implementing, that they can't do it alone, and so we require some of the same partnerships. So the Illinois model is called ICAPS, and we're still toying around with the name, but for right now we're going to call it ICAPS, just trying to give it our own little flavor for Illinois. It's our Integrated Career and Academic Prep System. And so you can find more information on our website about this system and other information. But our ICAPS model, through Accelerating Opportunity, we've implemented this in 8 colleges. And you have our colleges that are listed there, and they're really moving forward in their implementation of this process and are very excited about it. Initially, as a part of our design phase, we gave each of these 8 colleges resources in order to develop their project. We gave them extensive technical assistance. We visited Washington State to get a better understanding of what the iBest model was like, and then they were to come back, develop their logic models, and also move forward in the development of their pathways. Again, making sure that as a part of the process that they're not only just working within adult education, but they're bringing in others from other divisions of their colleges, including career and technical education. So some of the outcomes and deliverables for this project, we have to produce around 2,500 to 3,600 credentials within our state, within those 8 colleges. So that adds up to somewhere around, for 3,600, around 450 credentials per college. So it's not individuals, it's the credentials. And so that means that these have to be, as noted here, they have to be achievement of marketable, stackable, credit-bearing certificates and degrees. So those industry-recognized credentials, those are things that will be counted as a part of those credentials that are listed here. The transcripted credit. As a part of this project, what we are being asked to do is make sure that individuals have 12 credits. And that is the threshold that has been determined that will get our individuals to the level that they need to be in order to access maybe some of the middle skill jobs that are out there, some high wage, high skilled jobs that are out there. And hopefully by transcripting this credit, it gives them a little bit of understanding that they are really college students, and then their movement into post-secondary education, they can see that actual movement. As a part of the process, we also have to demonstrate college readiness by bypassing developmental education, and that's something that we've worked on with our alignment with our with the Common Core standards. We're working with that in order to make sure, and our programs also have to ensure that individuals are bypassing. And as we talked about within our strategic plan, this comprehensive academic and social student support, this is very important. And you can see just from the evolution of us talking today about our strategic plan for adult education in Illinois, that a lot of these things that we're doing are really aligning with what's in that strategic plan. So as a state director, it makes me feel really good that we are aligning ourselves with a lot of the different initiatives that are going on around the state. Then the last area there is this 50% overlap in instruction, making sure that that there is a team teaching approach to this model, that the basic skills teacher and the career and technical education teacher are paired together in a classroom, and there's this 50% overlap in instruction. And the whole idea is that both of those instructors are created equally, and the adult basic skills instructor is not a volunteer in the classroom. So as a part of this initiative, we had to identify some policy levers that we wanted to tackle within these 3 years. Policy lever 1 is to include ABE, which is our Adult Basic Education System, in measures and momentum points within the community college, the state's performance funding. The second, and before I move on to the second, that was a win for us early on in the process. We were able to get that in our community college performance-based funding discussions, and then also we were able to get those in the final recommendation. And so it was a win all around for ABE. Although the performance-based funding within our state for our community colleges is relatively small, we think that this is a win because that means that at this point we can only move forward. Policy lever 2 is the financial aid and support services for adult education students that are enrolled in ICAPS with the loss of ability to benefit. That was a huge blow for not only Illinois, but the other states that were involved in this process. And with that loss of the ability to benefit, we could not go in and get those financial get the financial aid for these particular students enrolled in the IBES. So a huge loss to our system. But as we move forward, we're talking more about how can we institutions can look at waivers, we can look at how we can braid funding streams in order to better serve this population, and also get tuition waivers within the institution, utilizing foundations support at the local levels, and as well as looking at other resources that might be used. We talked about Youth Build, we talked about Title I. A lot of our colleges are utilizing those existing funds within their own institutions. And our last policy lever is employer engagement and partnership support. How do we engage our partners and our employers so that we can make sure that they understand what we're producing in terms of we have this team teaching approach, this IBEST model or IBEST-like model, and we're really trying to make sure that these individuals, the employers, are engaged in the process of developing. And we've heard lots about employers identifying soft skills as one of the major components in looking at this whole process. Those soft skills are very important to the overall development of a student or an adult learner. So we want to know what employers want from us, and that's very important. And these three things are the areas that we're really focusing on as a state. So, and I talked a little bit already about this, is leveraging those resources. We use those variety of sources of funds. We use our adult education funding. We use our leadership funding to look at training. We look at incentive funds. We look at Title I funds, foundation funds. We look at youth build funds, private foundational support, and any other resources. And in the field of adult education, we're really used to identifying these multiple pots of money. So this was a natural direction for us to leverage those resources. This braided funding concept is something that's new to all of us, and there is information on the Center for Law and Social Policy. I believe it's www.clasp.org, and they have a document there, a toolkit that's there. And also through the Jobs for the Future, this Accelerating Opportunity Initiative, we're looking at how to help our locals braid funding that might be available that we're just not we don't understand how it can be used. So we're trying to enhance the toolkits and include information on how individuals can actually braid that funding. So we have a polling question here talking about braided funding. How much success have you had in braiding funding within your institution? So there are 4 choices there for you.
I guess some of us are going to hit D because it's all we think about is funding for these programs, but that's not necessarily the case. So let's go ahead and folks and make your decisions using the polling feature up above the names. Let's see, I better think about what I'm going to put here. Okay, there we go. Let's give us just another moment. I'll count down again because we probably know the answer to this about braided funding. So 3, 2, 1. Let's go ahead and close this poll. So we're interested in braided funding.
And it's one of those areas that I know that we're all interested in, and I'm not an expert in this field, but I hope to be in the very near future in terms of how can we use other resources and how can we reach out to our other partners in other organizations. For example, in our TANF organization, how can we partner with our TANF organizations in order to provide these services? What can be provided? So if you're looking at, maybe some of the technical when you're looking at braided funding, maybe your Title I partners might be able to pay for half of a transition specialist within your program, and then the other half is paid with your adult education funds or some other funding source. So that's what we mean when we talk about the braided funding.
Well, thanks. And we're about 10 minutes left of the presentation, Jennifer, so it's going really good. Just give us the highlights now as you go forward.
Okay. So as we move through this process with Accelerating Opportunity, there's a very extensive evaluation process. As you can see there, all of the individuals that are involved. We have lots of different coaches, and I think I left out one, but I'm not quite sure what it is. But but we do have a lot of coaches, and our primary coach for Illinois is Dr. Barbara Endel, who is with the Jobs for the Future, and she's also serves as not only our primary coach, but the project director for the whole entire Accelerating Opportunity project. So she's a busy lady. So project evaluation is very important as a part of this process, and we look forward to working with AO as a part of this process to learn what we can do better, because we could all learn something and institute using the data that we find for decision making. So in the first 6 months, we have served more than 230 students, and we have industry recognized credentials of 200 or more within those 8 colleges. So we're very happy about the results, and our colleges are only ramping up their efforts in terms of scaling. And so as we talk a little bit about the whole scaling effort here within Accelerating Opportunity, we are ramping up to 4 additional colleges. So we have about 12 that are on board now, and our colleges are really focusing in on making sure that they understand that they need to ramp up their efforts as well in terms of looking at other pathways. So here's just a few highlights in terms of some of the things that we've done in terms of curriculum alignment in order to make sure that individuals have the skills necessary to move directly into the credit-bearing programs, or at least place in the highest level of developmental education. So we've had some alignment of our Illinois standards with all of these standards that are listed here, specifically these essential knowledge and skills. Technology skills as being a definite that students need to have. So we're beginning we finalized our alignment, and now what we're doing is moving into curriculum institutes to help our programs to develop their curriculum, and if they have a curriculum, helping them to embed the standards as a part of their existing curriculum. So some of our priorities and next steps are to focus on evidence-based reading instruction, our content standards, and look with our Common Core and college readiness standards for ESL, specifically those upper levels of ESL, and also our expansion of our ICAPS model and our bridge programs. As I said earlier, we're expanding from the 39. We're expanding our bridge programs to all of our areas throughout our state and partnering. We're asking that we improve our data outcomes, because we really need to do that within our state and use data to kind of inform our next steps as a part of the process.
It looks good.
Okay, I'm sorry, something popped up on my screen. Yeah. I can't get rid of it. So I'm just going to move forward with the last pieces of the presentation.
Okay. It's looking fine here. So.
Okay. Michael, you might have to advance it because something popped up internally on our system. So.
Sure. Do you want me to go ahead?
Yes, just advance it forward.
Okay. Now it says, now this is your second slide of priorities and next steps, accelerating opportunity expansion and funding.
Okay. So now we're looking to expand our model. We're looking to incorporate career awareness at every level of instruction. We want to make sure that if individuals want to know about careers, they have the opportunity to learn that information. So as we move forward, we're really wanting to provide more training as we move through the process. So you can advance the slide.
Okay, now we're on the one that says scaling activities, 2 bullets.
Yes. And we've talked a little bit about this. We're now at up to 12 colleges, and we're adding more intense training so that we can move forward with our bridge programs. We held a Transitions Academy that focused on team teaching, building bridge programs, building accelerating opportunities programs, as well as employer engagement.
Good. Now we're at lessons learned.
Lessons learned, I think that what we want to concentrate on, it takes time to develop a process, and I can't reiterate that enough. You have to make sure that you go through the planning process. It's not something that will happen overnight. You have to include the entire provider system. You have to use partners. You have to make sure you communicate the message. You have to seek out advocacy groups and foundations as a part of the process. And you have to be able to really articulate your message and your vision.
Very good.
Work with the highest levels possible, and also plan, and more planning. Invest time in your teachers, and this came from one of our program administrators, is that you have to invest time in the teachers and allow them to observe each other's classes in order to develop those bridge programs and accelerating opportunities. And work within departments. I think that's very important, that you spend time, and that you just, for adult education, you just don't go in and pick up some of the terminology and incorporate it into your instruction and call it a bridge program, but you're actually working with career and technical education faculty.
Good.
All right. And so these next few slides are just to give you a little bit of information about instructional systems. And I really wanted to just concentrate on this first slide here, is that, when you're looking at your instructional systems, understand it. The teacher qualifications, they have content knowledge in a career area. In a bridge program, they are knowledgeable about both. And then there's that team teaching aspect in the integrated approach. And on the adult education side, remember that the qualifications may vary. They may have understanding in specific reading, writing, and math skills, but they may not have the other skills as well, because we all come from various backgrounds.
Sure.
Okay. And so as we move forward to the how do we make it all happen slide, it's come up with a vision for your adult education program and connect the vision with other statewide initiatives. Remember, it's not going to happen overnight. Find a few instructors and staff that are willing to start small, and that's what we did. We found a few colleges that were really willing to start. And remember, it's policy to performance. Look at your policies. You have your strategic plan. Now, how do you go to scale with it? How do you perform? And how do you look at your data and reevaluate that data as you move forward? And the last slide is really making sure that bridges and other integrated instructional models are a great way to help students make the decision to move into post-secondary education. And I sure hope it is, because in Illinois we really spent a lot of time, and I can't emphasize enough that time for planning is essential as a part of this process.
Jennifer, you really have emphasized that today. I think there was a common theme running through your presentation, that every amount of time that you spend in planning is paying off as you go into your implementation phase. At least that's what it sounds like to me.
Well, thank you, because we really spent a lot of time with it, and we're very happy to be a part of this presentation and be able to share with you.
Perfect. I'm going to encourage the attendees now that if they do have any final questions, and we have several that are stacked up in the queue here, Jennifer, to please put them in the chat window. And now I'm going to, as we go into our question phase, I've put, Jennifer, your contact information back up on the screen. And I know you're quite willing if people contact you by email, jennifer.foster@illinois.gov. So there's her information. And of course, you can see the communitycollegeboard.org there as well. Now at this point, we're going to ask you to briefly, just a minute, participate in the survey. We're going to launch the survey now. And Jennifer, while that survey is coming up, let me ask you a couple of questions that have come up here. We have just, we're perfectly on time this morning. And hold on just a second, so we're going to launch the survey. Just a moment. Okay, there we go. Sorry, folks. And there's the survey. Okay. I'm sorry, Jennifer, I'm just a little operator error here. Just 1 second. Well, while we're doing that, let me ask you some of the questions that have come up. One is related to standards. Where are these things published? I know there's everything from the Common Core to the science standards that are coming out. Where are these things published?
Okay. Our standards for Illinois adult education, they're published on our website at www.iccb.org, and then there on the left-hand side is a click that you can click on Administrator and then Adult Education for those. A lot of the other Common Core standards, you can go to Common Core Standards. I believe it's commoncore.org, or I'm sorry, I don't remember that particular one, but
that's an easy search. Yeah.
Standards are posted, and you can Google it, Common Core Standards.
Okay. One of the attendees mentioned you used the word bypassing developmental ed. What in the world does that mean?
One of the things is that in our United States, we've all had these discussions about developmental education, and that a lot of our students, once they go into developmental education, some don't make it out and move into the college side, the academic side. And so one of the things that, as a part of the Accelerating Opportunities Initiative, is that we have to ensure that individuals are, once they are in these blended courses or these integrated models, that they are able to go right into the regular college classes and bypassing developmental education. So that means that the core content and the basic skills is going to have to be at a level that they're able to pass the assessment or the compass test, the asset test, all of those different tests, making sure that they are able to place into higher levels rather than into developmental education. So that's what I mean by that.
Okay, good. One of our attendees was amazed that you said you had a waiting list for your students. That's really true, huh?
Yes, there's a waiting list across the country in some of and not all adult education programs, but in some there are waiting lists, and we have a very small percentage that are on waiting lists, but we don't have, individual programs are making it so that they adjust their hours of programming. So we have distance learning options. We have, if you go into an 8-week class or a 10-week class, we have multiple providers that offer those classes at a staggered rate. So there's a lot of referrals that go back and forth between programs. So yes, there are some waiting lists in Illinois.
Well, folks, thank you for participating in the survey. I'm going to go ahead and close it now, and we really appreciate your feedback. That helps us pay the bills, so to speak, to our sponsor, the National Science Foundation. Jennifer, I'm just going to close up here, and we'll have one final question, so hold on to your head for just a moment. We will send out the access to the recording of today's presentation. You'll be able to listen to the recording and see the slides as a handout. And you can search for that under our site, maytechnetworks.org, and use the keyword search webinar transitioning adults as you see on the screen. I'd like to tell you that this is a two-part webinar series on November 30th. Our second part will be focusing again on adult education, this time with an emphasis on career pathways. And you can register for that, if you haven't done so already, at maytechnetworks.org under the Professional Growth header. If you attended today, the live version, and you'd like a certificate of participation, you can send an email to Shannon, and you'll see her address there. We'll be happy to provide that. Here's one last announcement. If there's one conference that's related to technology education, workforce development, and things like that, consider going to Austin, Texas, July 21 through 24th, 2013, the High Impact Technology Exchange Conference, a great networking event for those of us working in these fields. So our final slide is up here, Jennifer. Let's close today. We're so perfectly on time. Thank you for that. If you had one thing to measure, people are always worried about metrics, and you mentioned them. What would be, in your mind, one of the key things that you could measure that could indicate the success of your adult program like this? What would you look at? Retention, graduation, persistence? What would be the one thing you would focus on?
I would have to choose one.
Well, I'm just trying to get you to prioritize. Yeah, okay.
It would be the students and their transitions into post-secondary education. And if I just said and employment, because I think that's very important.
Sure.
As we move forward in trying to realize that the national agenda, which is to make sure that individuals have more than just a high school diploma or a GED, we want to make sure that they have access to some post-secondary education and that they're able to access those high-wage and high-skilled jobs. And I would say access and transition to post-secondary and employment, pathway employment, is very important.
That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? I mean, you could take that to the bank. You could say, look, this is how our program works because we see this happening. That makes a lot of sense. Jennifer, thank you again. It was really our pleasure to have you calling in from Illinois, and thank you again for being part of this.
Thank you so much for having me.
Good, and that officially closes our webinar today, everyone. Goodbye.